running stories and connects you to the newsmakers.
It's midday. Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to the Citi Prime News, which is live from our studios at number 11 Dr. Morton Loop in Adabraka, Accra. It's also live on all our partner stations across the country. In the Western region, we're on Adwempa 100.7 FM in Takra and Beach 105.5 FM in Takra. In the Bono region, we're on Greener 95.9 FM in in the Ashanti region, we are on Adwempa 99.9 FM in Carrier. In the Volta region, we are on Heritage 107.3 FM in Hohoe and Freedom 88.1 FM in Sugako. In the Northern region, we are on Radio Gashi 88.3 FM in Saboba. In the Upper East region, we are on 7 FM in Gary. In the Upper West region, we are on Ganga 94.3 FM in Jura. And in the Northeast region, we are on Nobia FM 98.1 FM in Naluri. We are also live across the globe on citinewsroom.com. I am Wilma, Oboubisa, Coleman, and this afternoon I'm here with
Charles Owusu, Kumi.
Coming up, Volta Aluminium Company Valco shut down operations following the deflation by its workers over demands of salary equivalent to the dollar rate.
Restoration by indexation of the first compensation of the option grants. Come September, we went to the table and management is thinking a different thing, saying that it is a no-go area.
Also coming up, majority in Parliament calls on minority to give finance and Korea a chance for recklessness.
Right to fair hearing is a cynical nothing. You cannot take it away from a respondent in a matter. From the speaker, this advert here, there is good reason why the opponent of the constitution said we should put it on notice.
Still ahead, National Petroleum. And later, Avia
Suppliers are no more students suppliers, and that's the student identity.
Stay tuned as
Citi Prime News at 12 midday updates you on all the running stories and connects you to the newsmakers.
many thanks. Correspondent Hansen.
The past week observed that some oil marketing companies had increased their prices at the pump aside the pricing window. As we know, there are two major pricing windows in every month. The first pricing window, which takes place from the first day of the month to the 15th day of the month, and then the second pricing window, which takes place from the 16th day of the month to the end of the month. That's either 30th of the month or 31st, depending on when the month ends. However, in the month of October, we observed that some of these oil marketing companies had actually reviewed their prices upward without recourse to the timelines for reviewing SAFE. Now, the NPA explained to us that even though this is not something that is stipulated in law, it is a convention and understanding between the NPA and the OMC, so that at least there can't be some predictability of the pricing system within the space. However, they've allowed it to happen, or they've overlooked it because of the challenges with the Ghana cedis as it continues to depreciate with the against the dollar. The NPA tells us that previously most of these oil marketing companies were allowed, or they get to buy these products on credit and pay later. But now they are supposed to make these payments in cash. And as a result of this, because they sell the product on CD terms and they have to make the payment in dollar terms, whenever there's an increase, they go ahead to also adjust. And if they do not allow them to adjust to be able to stay in business, what then will happen is that these OMCs will be forced to cut buying, or not to, or will run out of business. And then the ultimate impact of this will be a shortage of the product. So per NPA's thinking and per the guidelines that regulate the space, for them to be able to protect businesses and to make sure that the commodity is in constant supply, it is in the best interest of all stakeholders to at least give room for these companies to be able to adjust their prices as and when, to be able to meet the demands of the depreciation CD, or the CD depreciating against the dollar. So that's the explanation that we get from NPA for the continuous increment in the prices of fuel at the pumps aside the major pricing windows.
Now, Hansen, please hold on a bit. We have the Director of Communications, Voice Mohammed Abdul Kudus. Let's listen to what he's saying.
Given the fact that the products are actually bought from the world market in dollar, anytime the dollar changes, it affects the character of the pricing. And so, yes, we ought to have been operating with the 2-window framework, or 2 weeks window framework. But because of the volatility of the CD against the dollar, and the fact that you ought to be guaranteeing a certain return on investment from the end of the supplier, you ought to be a little flexible with what previously was established or has been established to be the windows within which the prices are supposed to vary. So yes, we saw prices go up within the same window more than once. It is basically the case of the behavior of the CD and the dollar, and the need to protect the investment of the supplier.
Right. Before we go into the various variables, I mean, the components itself, i.e. the world market prices, the depreciation of the CD, and the taxes and the levies. A quick observation we made. I mean, I'm bringing this in because you mentioned the 2 pricing windows, where some OMCs really made the adjustments before the pricing window. Some also made the adjustments after the 2 pricing windows. Did this observation come to your notice, and what's your take on this?
Yes, so like I said, yes, we actually made the observation, and the Economic Regulation Department that primarily is charged with the responsibility of regulating how the prices are determined equally took notice of same. But like I said, because of the volatility, if we wanted to get the players to stick to the 2 weeks window benchmark that we've actually put in for ourselves, what it means is that we might be experiencing some shortage because some of them might not be able to go and bring the product. But we needed to, first of all, guarantee the availability of the product in the market. And in guaranteeing that, we ought to situate what is it that is affecting their pricing. Then we'll be able to agree whether they should go by it or not to go by it. So yes, it came to our notice. Yes, we knew that the 2 window virtually has not been strictly followed, but seized by the factors that was informing their pricing, were sure and confident that nothing was being done untoward.
You heard the Director of Communications at the National Petroleum Authority, Mohammed Abdul Kudus. Now, Hansen is still on the line. Now, Hansen, what have you observed at the pumps of the fuel stations?
So we've actually observed an increment in the prices. Aside industry leader Guel, which previously had 13.99, a number of these OMCs already were selling from 16.99 to 17.99 for petrol, and then between 22 and 23.99 for diesel. This morning, per our checks, gold has also increased its price to that range and is now selling at 17.99, and for petrol and diesel for 23.99. So generally, you can see that there's been that increment across board for most of these OMCs. So if persons go out to look for petrol, depending on the margins that these OMCs will put on their price build up, you could get between 16.99 to 17.99 for petrol, and between 22 to 23.99 for diesel. Generally, this is what we've observed where I checked at various OMC centers across the capital.
Thank you very much for that. That was Hansen Ajiman, my colleague here. Up to speed at about the fuel prices at the fuel pumps, and also picking thoughts from the NPA on the increase of prices of fuels. My colleague Charles has more.
Now, the Ministry of Local Government, Decentralization and Rural Development has called for support from relevant stakeholders in tackling rural-urban migration. It says infrastructure will be under immense pressure in the coming years as data from the Ghana Statistical Service on urban migration currently stands at 56%. The following report has more. Ghana's population is now 30.8 million. This is according to the 2021 Population and Housing Census. This is an increase of 6.1 million people from the 2010 population figure, which was 24.6 million. Ghana's urban population has increased from 50% in 2010 to 56% in 2021, with 47% of the increase in the Greater Accra and Ashanti regions. The surge in settlements in urban areas calls for the need to stimulate authorities to take action on the reasons behind the movement and adopt workable solutions to curtail the phenomenon. In view of this, the Ministry of Local Government, Decentralization and Rural Development is courting support from relevant stakeholders in tackling the issue holistically through policies.
What is being done to also curb rural-urban migration? And one aspect is to make the rural areas livable. Livable is to also make sure that there's local economic development. And if we move from 50% and now we are in 56.7%, in the next 10 years, if we have census and household data come out, how many people will be living in urban areas? And do we have the enough infrastructure to take care of them as they move to the urban areas? It has so many waste disposal, it has incidents on crime, how people live. And then the Ghana Statistics gives an interesting thing about the youth and the distribution. Those who are moved into the urban areas, who are they? What sort of employment are they engaging? Are they really employed? And if they are not employed, what are other things do they do? So it has serious implications that should engulf the attention of all of us.
The recent demolition of houses by authorities on waterways, the buffer zones, among others, are clear indicators that there is a need to tackle this to avert any challenges in the future. As such, Mohamed Damba, the president of the Ghana Institute of Planners, wants the government to focus on building social houses instead of affordable housing units across the country. He says social houses have proven to be cheaper and their adoption will help co-create a livable environment for all.
The truth also is that a lot of the people, especially the low-income people who stay in these areas, really are unable to afford the regular housing we have in the market. And so they are forced by circumstances to go and live on such marginal lands, such as living under transmission lines, on water or gas pipeline areas, road reservations, and riparian buffer areas along water bodies. What we need to do in the medium to long term is to really take what we refer to as affordable housing seriously. Maybe we have to add social housing, which are the most subsidized versions of the affordable range of housing units that we provide.
On the part of the Ministry of Works and Housing, the sector minister Francis Asensubuachi says plans are advanced to set up a housing authority to empower the ministry to plan and execute housing policies to meet the needs of Ghanaians.
The need to create a robust institutional framework to develop and implement affordable housing programs has become very necessary. As a result, the ministry is in the process of setting up a housing authority. This bill, which is currently with the Attorney General's Department, when passed, will empower the authority to regulate, plan, and implement housing programs that meet the needs and financial aspirations of Ghanaians. In conclusion, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, the Ministry of Works and Housing is fully committed to the Ghana Urban Forum and will entreat the Ministry of Local Government, Decentralization and Rural Development to strengthen its engagement with the Ministry of Works and Housing and all other stakeholders in the future.
That report was filed by City News' Kennedy Chumesi.
Now, the Minister of Communications and Digitalization, Owusu, says effective 2023, the government has barred the use of private emails by public sector workers to execute state businesses. She maintains that this will ensure the continuity of state information and mitigate instances of exposing state information to cyber attacks. Speaking at the Technology Breakfast meeting organized to sensitize public chief executives on leverage and on the government's digitalization drive, Madam Owusu urged the public sector chief executives to tighten structures to protect government information in the discharge of their duties.
From the next year, beginning of next year, the use of personal emails for official government business no longer is to be able to facilitate that. Then we could have been heading comfortably thumb our chest and say that we are in a position, NITA is in a position to ensure that every public sector official has the official email to their business so that official information stays within the official domain. In other countries, you can lose your job for not using the official email because it compromises the security of the entire system. It destroys institutional memory. It makes government information available everywhere in the world. If Yahoo is hacked, that's it. We lose Yahoo, Gmail, Hotmail, and all the other public. And free is not free. Somebody somewhere is using that information that we're providing on those supposedly free platforms, doing all kinds of things with our data which we don't know about. But when you're signing up to that platform, you have the consent. You tick the box because you want to use that app. So you don't read what you are consenting to, but you're giving them the power to use your data, which you're freely putting on their platform, for whatever they use, they need to. They want to. We don't want our data to end up in the wrong hands.
Owusu is the Minister of Communications and Digitalization.
Now, away from that, the leadership of the National Democratic Congress, NDC, has condemned an attack on the party's headquarters at Adabraka in Accra. A statement signed by the General Secretary of the party, Johnson Esiudin Ketia, revealed that the attack was recorded in the early hours of Monday, October 31, 2022. According to the statement, the attack was perpetrated by a group of persons clad in red and fuming with rage. The attackers are reported to have broken into the office of the Deputy General Secretary, Barbara Sewa Samoa, and removed a prepaid meter. Soon after the act, the spokesman of the group addressed the crowd that accompanied him and threatened to deal with the Deputy Secretary of the party for allegedly installing a prepaid meter in her office. The NDC further indicated that steps are being taken to identify the perpetrators and to bring them to book.
You're listening to the Citi Prime News live from our studio at Adabraka in Accra. Still to come, majority in Parliament calls on minority to give Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta an opportunity to be heard over accusations of fiscal recklessness as basis for a vote of censure against him. We'll bring you the details among this and others shortly. Please stay with us.
Citi Prime News at 12 midday updates you on all the running stories and connects you to the newsmakers.
Here is the planet's ultimate game.
The greatest prize in football. You on all the running stories and connects you to the newsmakers.
You're welcome back. We go to Parliament where the majority is asking the minority to offer Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta an opportunity to be heard on allegations leveled against him as basis for a vote of censure against him. We go over the phone lines to speak to parliamentary correspondent Ni Ayikwe Okine to give us details on this. Good afternoon, Ayikwe. What can you report?
Good afternoon, Wilma. So this morning, during proceedings, the Deputy Majority Leader, Alexander Afenyo-Markin, actually raised concerns with regard to the vote of censure against the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta. You know, there's a matter that was raised last week when the minority filed the motion, and the Speaker of Parliament, Alban Bagden, ruled that the motion was appropriately laid and there is nothing wrong with it. That was after the Deputy Majority Leader, Alexander Afenyo-Markin, raised an objection that the motion was not appropriately laid because with regard to the proceedings of the House, if you put out a motion, you don't need to bring all the bases for which you are putting down this motion. But then with regard to the vote of censure against the Finance Minister, the minority has listed about 7 reasons for the basis of their vote of censure, and the Speaker of Parliament ruled that there was nothing wrong with this particular procedure that is being used by the minority. And today, the Deputy Majority Leader, Alexander Afenyo-Markin, raised another concern, and his concerns are that the minority needs to provide the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, an opportunity for him to be heard on the basis that have been, and the allegations that have been leveled against him as the basis for the motion. And more so, that all members of the House needs to get a copy of the basis for which the minority is filing the vote of censure. So that has been the key thing. And the third concern that he raised was that the House needs to clarify whether or not the finance minister could be allowed to be represented by a council. Thus, if he is offered the opportunity to be heard on these allegations that have been leveled against him. And part of the allegations is that the finance minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, has engaged in conflicts of interest, which he is ensuring that he directly benefits from Ghana's economic woes as his companies receive commissions and other unethical contractual advantages. And then the minority also stated that due to the fiscal recklessness of the finance minister, he has currently plunged the country into hardship, crashing the Ghana cedi, which is currently the worst performing currency in the world. And they also stated that unconstitutional withdrawals from the Consolidated Fund in blatant contravention of Article 178 of the 1992 Constitution has been undertaken by the finance minister. He's also made illegal payments of oil revenues into offshore accounts and all that. So these are some of the allegations that the minority leveled. And the deputy majority leader, Alexander Afenyo-Markin, after his concerns that he raised, we had the minority leader, Haruna Idrisu, also saying that, the Speaker of Parliament, Alban Bagbin, has already ruled on this matter. So if anything at all, we should wait. So the motion matures. That's after 7 days, the motion matures, and then they would know the next line of action to take. So these concerns that Afenyo-Markin is raising must be actually suspended until the motion is matured before they could go back to them. And we also have the majority leader himself, Osaiche Mensah, also commenting on the matter that in as much as the concerns of Afenyo-Markin are in order, he would also suggest that once the Speaker of Parliament, Alban Bagbin, has ruled, it should be upheld until the motion matures. And today we had the second Deputy Speaker of Parliament, Andrew Isiamwamako, sitting in for Speaker Alban Bagbin, who is currently who has currently traveled. And so he also indicated that,
before you go on, let's listen to the voice of Afenyo-Markin quickly, and then we'll come back to you.
Mr. Speaker, under our own jurisprudence on contempt, we allow the respondent contemnor to be represented by counsel, and we have precedence in that because he is entitled to be heard. Right to fair hearing is a sine qua non thing. You cannot take it away from a respondent in a matter. So, Mr. Speaker, this advert here, there is good reason why the proponent of the Constitution said we should put it on notice. And it is good we've done that. Once it is yet to be mature, my view is, as a house, we should look at all the roadblocks and appropriately address them before the day comes. You and I are aware that even when questions are filed, and Mr. Speaker admits, upon the question being admitted, there is a transmission administratively to the minister concerned, which enables him to come. Here we are. We have mounted a serious matter essential, and the applicants have not served him, neither have they supported their motion with the basis upon which they mount the application, except to advertise some ex-cathedral matters. So all I am saying as a house, Mr. Speaker, I'm not going into that Mr. Speaker's ruling. This is another angle I am looking at it. The last time I didn't raise the issue of Article 14. And colleagues, let's be careful here. Today, it may be you, and you may think it's okay. But if we agree on the rules of procedure in dealing with this matter, posterity will come and judge all of us. It could be Haruna Idrisu tomorrow, being a minister of state.
You heard the Deputy Majority Leader, Alexander Afenyo-Markin. We'll now listen to the minority who are saying that the Speaker's ruling must be upheld.
Mr. Speaker, this House is governed by the Constitution 1992, Republican Constitution of Ghana, and by our standing orders. Mr. Speaker, the matter to which the Deputy Leader is referring to is an attempt to resurrect a matter to which the Speaker have made a pronouncement, which pronouncement is that the motion is meritorious and competent and has been admitted by the Speaker. But Mr. Speaker, to respond to him, I will just say that the Speaker has ruled and he must show respect to the ruling of the Speaker. If he has any disagreement on the ruling of the Speaker, he knows what to do. But Mr. Speaker, ordinarily in any civilized democracy in the world, you don't even need a motion for the Minister for Finance to proceed home. He himself, upon self-appraisal of where he has led the country to and led the economy to, in all conscience will bow out and save this country, save investment. So we have brought a motion, a competent motion. Mr. Speaker, I'm well aware that this side, we do not have the minimum threshold to succeed in essential. But I'm also well aware that voting on this matter will be secret and will be by a secret ballot. And I'm aware that there are reasonable people opposite the aisle. Very, I withdraw, leader close offender. There are like-minded persons opposite the aisle who share our position, but are afraid to be seen offending the president because the Minister of Finance has become his small god.
That was the minority leader, Haruna Idrisu. Now, Ayi, if you're still on the line, you were speaking, just before I cut you, were speaking about the second Deputy Speaker of Parliament, Andrew Amwako, who has been in the seat today. What has his ruling been?
So he also indicated that just as the minority leader, Haruna Idrisu, said, and the majority leader, Sechi Mensah, also acceded to, the Speaker's ruling on the matter should be upheld, and so the motion is matured for other discussions. So that has been it. And for today also, we have the minority leader leading a petition by the National Democratic Congress, NDC, for the House to actually suspend actions on proposed constitutional instruments by the Electoral Commission. So the Electoral Commission actually made it clear that they wanted to rely on the Ghana card as the sole document for registration onto the voters register for the 2024 general elections. And if you would recall, last week, the Speaker of Parliament, Alban Bagbin, indicated that nothing of that sort has officially been communicated to him, and so that is that the House would not recognize any instrument whatsoever by the EC to have the Ghana card as the sole document for registration onto the voters register. And today, there's the NDC, led by the minority leader Haruna Idrisu, proposed or petitioned that the proposed public elections, that's the registration of voters instruments, should not be laid until the backlog of Ghana cards, which the National Identification Authority has admitted to, has been cleared. And they also actually proposed that the public elections instruments, that's the CI, as a subsidiary legislation, cannot override the substantive provision in the Constitution on the citizens' right to register and vote. And they are insisting that the Electoral Commission must hold on with these things in order not to deny millions of Ghanaians the opportunity to partake in the upcoming elections. However, there's minority leader Haruna Idrisu at the time indicated that he would defer this particular petition until he's had further consultations with leadership of the House before he could relay it back to the House.
Thank you very much for that. That was my parliamentary correspondent, me, Ayikwe Okwan, giving us up to speed on proceedings in Parliament so far. But we'll play the voice of the second Deputy Speaker, Andrew Esiama Amwako, who was giving his ruling as directed that the Speaker of Parliament, Albert Babin's ruling on the matter be maintained.
The issue regards to the essential motion has already been discussed. At that time, last week, I was here when you raised these same issues, and Mr. Speaker ruled that the motion was proper. So I think there's nothing, you yourself even say you are not raising this issue to reverse what Mr. Speaker has said. So I think we will patiently wait till the motion matures and see what unfolds that day. So on that note, we thank you for your submission.
That was the second Deputy Speaker of Parliament, Andrew Esiama Amwako.
Now, the Association of Ghana Industries, AGI, says it looks forward to the next year's budget for the implementation of proposals it tabled to the government. The association, like other major economic stakeholders, met President Akufo-Addo to fashion out measures to rescue the economy from the current difficulties. President of the association, Humphrey Dake, says the association, after listening to the president's recent address, is anticipating the 2023 budget reading for details of how solutions discussed will be implemented.
We mentioned to government issues regarding policy incoherence, and it's always been on this subject matter of benchmark discount value and its distortion of our economic fundamentals. We said it many a time that not necessarily the pricing, but the economic formula or the economic paradigm was being distorted by the benchmark discount value. And they promised by close of year they will do a total reversal. That was something that was inimical to industrialization, irrespective of the one district, one party initiative that was going on. Number two, we mentioned issues regarding the tax structure, especially the VAT tax structure as it stands, and how it has cascading effect on production and making our productions uncompetitive. These are major cross-cutting issues that were inimical to industrialization. Besides these related policy issues, we mentioned issues regarding pre-taxation instead of post-taxation. And therefore, we felt government should relook at it, considering that in the midst of IMF, there'll be contraction of the economic growth, there'll be austerity. Therefore, in the space of government, that which would be most advisable is to prop up the private sector to create jobs whilst government is going through its contraction and downsizing and restructuring a number of debt-related issues. Once the president's speech came up, we had to just compare what we said to the president and what is captured. And the reference to the budget that we're waiting for to get details in terms of the how. How will this be done? What are the processes that will affect our operations? We defer that to the budget. So patiently, we're waiting for that section of engagement.
Humphrey Dake is the president of the Association of Ghana Industries, AGI.
Currently, there seems to be some uncertainty over whether or not persons with investments in government securities will get haircuts. This comes despite President Akufo-Addo's assurance during his address to the nation that government does not intend to slash their investments as speculated. But what is the real situation? There's more in the following report.
In recent times, one word that is resonating in the minds of Ghanaians is the word haircut. The word became popular following government's negotiations with the International Monetary Fund to seek an economic bailout. Ghana is struggling with managing its debt, a 20-year high inflation, a weak currency, among others. Inflation has risen to hit 37.2% in September 2022, whilst the cedi has depreciated by close to 50% year-to-date against the dollar. These challenges forced governments to approach the International Monetary Fund, IMF, for an economic bailout. As part of the process, there would have to be a new assessment of the sustainability of the country's debt. The process, known as the Debt Sustainability Analysis, will be a confirmation as to whether Ghana's debt is on a sustainable path. If the new assessment concludes that Ghana's debt levels are unsustainable, the country would have to take steps to restructure its debt to qualify for an IMF assistance. Currently, though government has not confirmed whether or not the debt restructuring process will happen, there have been reports predicting a so-called haircut on government bonds should the process begin. But President Akufo-Addo in his address on Sunday assured that government does not intend to slash the returns made on investments as speculated. But is this possible? Director of Strategy and Business Operations with Dalex Finance, Joe Jackson, has been speaking to Citi News.
I disagree with the president. The reason being that I cannot see how we can pass, when I look at all the numbers, I cannot see how we can pass the debt sustainability as an analysis, how we can pass that assessment, the debt sustainability assessment, without having some sort of domestic debt restructuring or the haircut.
He highlights the options government has.
You could get a reduction in your principal, you could get a reduction in your interest, or you could get an extension of the amount of time that you were expecting to be paid. Any which way, you've lost money.
For economist Courage Boti, the best option for governments will be for it not to touch the principal amounts.
If we have to go this route, the most sustainable and for the interest of government financing going forward will be to avoid the principal haircut. The reason is potentially, as things stand now, government may not be able to tap into the urban market maybe in the next 3 years. In my view, minimum 3 years. So between that time, it is concessional financing from multilateral and bilateral lenders. And of course, that is what we are hoping the IMF program will unlock, where we can get regional and international financing from our partners, really. But beyond those, you also need the local market to support you, like it did in 2020 when the external market was closed and not conducive and we couldn't go to issue because of COVID and all of that. If you give them a principal haircut, what essentially it does is it dents confidence further. And the last thing government will want at this point in time is to lose access to the domestic market also.
That was economist Courage Boti ending that report filed by Citi News' Nettie Nettie.
Now, the Pig Farmers Association of Ghana says it will from today, November 1, 2022, increase the prices of pigs at the farm gate to 20 cedis per kilo. According to the association, several factors have contributed to the price hike, with the price of feed and the scarcity of ingredients being the major ones. The association says these factors are preventing its members from having a long-term business association with buyers since the prices keep fluctuating on the market. Speaking to Citi News at this year's Porktober Festival, the president of the association, Kwame Appiah-Dankwa, wants the government to stabilize the cedi and control the price fluctuations affecting the pork business.
As of now, our main challenge that we are facing as an industry is the price of the feed and the scarcity of some of the ingredients. That is our main challenge. The price keeps escalating every day. So it becomes a challenge to even have a long-term business arrangement with any buyer. Because you go and sign a deal with a person that you keep supplying the person pork for, let's say, a month or two, and you give the person a price. But within a week or two, you go and the feed ingredients have gone up. And it's difficult to say you not go by the contract. So it has become a challenge for anybody to sign any business agreement with any buyer for now. And it's quite disturbing. Basically, the maize, which is even supposed to be a local ingredient and a base, which is very important in our formulation, also keeps going up as if we use the dollar to buy it. So when it comes to those that are imported, then you can imagine soya just in September was around 50 kilos, and it's almost 500 now. Less than we are in September, October, so a month plus. So it keeps, when you go to the shop for these additives and the vitamins and the minerals, every day you go, the price have changed. And all you ask, and they'll tell you that the dollar, when they imported, it was 8 cedis. Now it's gone to 13 cedis. So they are not sure what will happen, so they have to increase so that if it should happen that by the time they sell and they are going to buy some and it's 50, they can still import. So the prices keep going up and down. And it's quite frustrating. Really, it's not making doing business interesting at all.
President of the Pig Farmers Association of Ghana, Kwame Appiah-Dankwa.
This is still the Citi Prime News live from our studio at Adabraka in Accra. Still ahead in this bulletin. Teacher Trainee Association of Ghana, TTAG, disappointed in government over its inability to pay their outstanding allowances to the various colleges of education. We'll bring you the details shortly. Do stay with us.
Citi Prime News at 12 midday updates you on all the running stories and connects you to the newsmakers.
A rising TME, a rising increment in my salary. This is all I ask this season. A rising Buami.
Stories and connects you to the newsmakers.
You're welcome back. Now, the Teacher Trainee Association of Ghana, TTAG, has expressed their disappointment in the government for its inability to pay their outstanding allowances to the various colleges of education. Principals of colleges of education, in a letter addressed to the Ministry of Education, is seeking the permission of the ministry to allow students in the various schools to fend for themselves from Monday, November 7, because of struggles in procuring food items. Prinkov in July raised similar concerns for government to pay their 8 months arrears. Government subsequently paid 3 out of the 8 months in arrears, a situation the principals say is affecting the smooth running of the institutions. National President of TTAG, Jonathan Zunu, tells Citi News students will be left stranded if the government fails to meet its obligation.
We are not in support of whatever they are proposing as students. We are not in support of, or we don't support. We should be disappointed in a way, because if you look at this, is not the first time that a letter of this kind is coming out. Somewhere May, the principals came out with a similar letter, and now it means that the problem has still not been solved. And there is two ways around this issue. The first one is that there must be a review in the amount that is used to feed the students. And the second one is that because of government inability to pay the money on monthly basis, where sometimes the money will have to accumulate for 4 months, 5 months, 6 months. And when they come to pay, they pay, let's say, 2 months out of it. That's the basic cause of the problem. Because the money is not coming, the students will not be able to feed themselves. One, if you're asking the students to feed themselves, the question is, where will they get the money from? And where are they going to feed themselves? These are the questions we should be asking ourselves.
Mr. Juno also kicked against calls by some Ghanaians for the cancellation of the teacher trainee allowance.
If for students to find ways of taking care of themselves, I don't understand it. Maybe you could mention some of the ways. Then we look at it. But I think that over the period, the argument has been on the fact that teacher training colleges are at tertiary level now, so the students should be feeding themselves. But the question is that are we in tertiary? If you look at what the tertiary institution is made of, are we made of that? If you're asking the students to feed to cook on their own, fine. We stay in dormitories. Are you saying the students should cook in the dormitories where they sleep? It's not possible. The discussion goes beyond the name tertiary. You are a degree awarding institution. It goes beyond that. There are a lot of things that need to be put in place before we can arrive at such a discussion. So until such commitments are made, I think the discussion shouldn't go to where people are pushing it to.
Jonathan Junu is the national president of the Teacher Trainee Association of Ghana. Meanwhile, the Ministry of Education says it's working to swiftly resolve outstanding financial obligations to colleges of education to help fund for trainee teachers. The public relations officer of the Education Ministry, Kwesi Kwate, says discussions are being held with the Finance Ministry for the release of funds to the colleges.
Brinkoff's letter, clearly you will find that they are adducing to some disruptions within the food supply chain at the College of Education. And then we as a ministry knows that is a valid point that they raise, because as a result of inflationary pressures in town, you have the suppliers unwilling to even distribute food to the College of Education. Because by the time they distribute and the time they reimburse, clearly the monies that they use in such business would have devalued. And then as a matter of urgency, the Ministry of Education together with the Ministry of Finance is working very hard swiftly to address those concerns that were raised by Prinkoff. So the expectation is that these issues or concerns will be resolved even ahead of the 7th November ultimatum that Prinkoff gave. So yes, we will address all challenges within the College of Education space, particularly those that concerns the food situations. Yes, we are working on that, and the Minister of Education, Dr. Owusu, is very committed to address it.
You heard the Public Relations Officer of the Education's Ministry, Kwesi Kwati.
We'll stay with matters of education because the leadership of the 4 unions in the public universities that have undertaken an industrial action says they will continue to be on strike until the National Labour Commission directs the government to table the terms of payment of their vehicle maintenance and off-campus allowances. The University Teachers Association of Ghana, the Tertiary Education Workers Union, the Ghana Association of University Administrators, and the University of Ghana chapter of the Senior Staff Association have been on strike since last month to demand the payment of agreed 10.99 Ghana Cedi fuel allowance. Interventions by the National Labour Commission have failed to yield the needed results because, according to the unions, the NLC has not directed the government to address their concerns. The president of the University Teachers Association of Ghana, Professor Solomon Nunu, has been speaking to Citi News. We're sorry for that insert. We'll bring that to you in our subsequent bulletins.
Now, parents of pupils in public basic schools have been urged to invest more into the education of their wards, since children in private basic schools often fare better than those in public basic schools. This is evident in how private basic schools are putting in more practical and creative measures in making academic work more relatable to these children. Citi News' Desmond Selassie-Ago has more in the following report.
Most public schools in Ghana, popularly known as Saito, face serious challenges as proper attention is not given to them. In rural areas, especially where the poverty rate is high, parents have no other option than to send their wards to these deprived schools. Even in some urban centers, some public schools still lack the needed materials and basic facilities for children to access quality education. Most parents in the urban centers who want their wards to do well and acquire proper education tend to send them to private institutions. One major difference, which puts the private schools ahead of the public schools, is the efforts put in by parents and teachers in these private schools. The chairperson for the Ghana National Association of Private Schools, NAPS, in the home municipality, Isaac Mensah, who spoke to Citi News at the 25th graduation ceremony of the Sunrise Christian School in Hosels, although teachers have been adequately trained at the public schools, the lack of resources have played a significant role in the gap between public and private schools. He said, parents must take responsibility and support their wards in schools.
Lack of resources for teaching and learning. A lot of teachers have been trained well, but are lacking the resources to teach. So we as the private schools, we thought it's wise together to engage the parents. They are the main supporters of their wards in education, so we cannot do without them. So we call them, discuss with them that money is needed for a whole lot of things to run the school. Training of teachers, getting of equipments and all teaching logistics. And they saw the need to support and bring them together, looking at the bigger umbrella under which they are falling. They all accepted. And in my area of jurisdiction, you realize that they are all putting their efforts into support us. And that's how come we are doing better in this era. Parents should understand that government cannot do it all. And a lot of parents are thinking that it's the duty of the government to even take care of their wards. So sometimes children go to school hungry, even exercise books to write in are not there. So I like to encourage parents to understand that once they've given birth to their children, it is their responsibility to do so before government will add his or his least or meager resources that they have.
According to the NAF chairperson in the whole municipality, private schools have adopted some measures to ensure pupils are engaged in teaching and learning activities, and this has put pupils in private schools ahead of pupils in public schools. He, however, noted that the cost of acquiring some teaching and learning materials have significantly increased. He said government must put in measures to ensure parents of pupils in the public sector are engaged in the affairs of their wards in schools.
No, these children, they lack mentors and people I call heroes of change. So we also expose them to career opportunity where we invite people who are already at the forefront, people we can call model, people who are ahead, and we conduct interviews with them. And we also take them on specific programs to some facilities where they can identify that these are the things they can also grow up to be managers of. Because a lack of vision, they are all perish. So we try to help them to create visions of their own. At the private sector, some of the challenges we are facing is the high tax rates. When you go to the market for some of these logistics, when we try to import some of these learning materials, the tax are also scaring us. I think tax on teaching and learning resources should be looked at. Then government should also make sure that as the private schools are struggling and trying to catch up, we should also find means a way of engaging the government sector schools and the needed resources. We should also try as much as possible to supply them. And it should not do without the parents. Parents should be involved. So at every point in time, the PTAs must be well recognized and be strengthened so that they can also take part in the affairs of the schools.
Speaking to Citi News, Administrator of the Sunrise Christian School, Daniel Mauko Jamesi, said the partnership between teachers and parents have proven to be a major influence in the academic activities of their pupils.
Involvement of parents has always been crucial. When kids know that parents set the standard at home and ensure that there is a balance between doing schoolwork versus doing other things, those kids have a very different attitude. And that's what we see here at Sunrise. We still have a lot of room to grow in this area, but we see every time our parents get more and more involved in what goes on in the academic lives of their kids, the kids tend to apply themselves a whole lot better in the classroom and in all the activities that need to be done. And that's what we need, because education really is not the job of just the school. It is a partnership between the school and the parents. And for that matter, if one side slacks a little, it becomes problematic to educate the children.
Parents of school-going children, especially those in the public sector, have been advised to put in more efforts to ensure their kids do well in school. Reporting for Citi News from the Volta Regional Capital Hall, I'm Desmond Selasiago.
The Volta Aluminium Company Limited, VALCO, has shut down its operations following agitations by its workers over their demands for a salary restoration equivalent to the dollar rate. Workers at VALCO currently receive their salaries in dollars but are paid a cedi equivalent. However, because the cedi has depreciated drastically to the dollar, they want the company's management to peg their salaries to the dollar rate. Their reason is that their salaries are continually reducing in value as they are not being paid what is due them. Expressing their displeasure, the local chairman of VALCO Workers Union, Edgar Tete, wants the management to address their concerns immediately due to the critical role the company plays in the economy.
We went to the table last year for negotiations. It is prudent on any management to look out for the best compensation option for its workers. And as we know, VALCO is an entity that deals in aluminium. It's a smelter. We only have global competitors. We don't have any competitor down here. So all our goods and services are in dollars. At the table, we agreed that we are going to adopt restoration by indexation as the best compensation option for us. Come September, we went to the table and management is singing a different song, saying that it is a no-go area. But let me tell you something. If restoring us to our wages is a no-go area, then why is it that your fuel, that is a go area? They have graduated themselves from the first line supervisor to whoever, starting from 115 gallons of fuel every month. Check the price of fuel now. From 2021 September to 2022 September. Check the percentage increment and tell me that it is not a restorative item. So what is wrong for us, the workers? to ask for the restoration of our wages. Everything we do here is in dollars. And for the record, no smelter in the world pay its worker less than $1,000. But here we are taking $337 a month, and we ask you to restore us, not to increase it to the city. And you say, what? We are disturbing. What of the 115 gallon of fuel? 125 gallon of fuel, 135 gallon of fuel, 145 gallons of fuel every month.
Local chairman of Valco Workers Union, Edgar Tete.
And that's it by way of a Citi Prime News, which has been live from our studio at number 11 Dr. Morton Loop in Adaraka, Accra. We're also live on our partner stations across the country. In the Western region, we're on Adrempa 100.7 FM in Takwa, Beach 105.5 FM in Takrady. In the Bono region, we're on Greener 95.9 FM in Sunyani. In the Ashanti region, we're on Adrempa 99.9 FM in Inkarie. In the Volta region, we're on Heritage 107.3 FM in Hohoi. And on Freedom 88.1 FM also in Sugakope. Northern region, we're on Radio Gaki 88.3 FM in Sapoba. And Upper East region, we're on Quality 88.7 FM in Garu. Upper West, we're on Ganga 94.3 FM in Jirapa. And the Northeast region, we're on Nobia FM 98.1 FM in Narilugu. For more news, you can log on to our website, citinewsroom.com. My name is Wilma Oboubisa Coleman, and this afternoon I was here with
Owusu Kumi.
Nashika Caesar brings you the afternoon's edition of the City Business.